African Data Ethics, a Discursive Framework for Black Decolonial Data Science. Oh. Okay. So first off, let me just start with how I got to this inquiry. So I was learning more about the global data ethics community, and one of the major critiques is that tech powers and the countries that they reside in are the ones who are setting the moral agenda for responsible data science, and also their epistemic traditions are what are undergirding a lot of data ethics paradigms. So there's been a rise in pluralism in order to highlight the data ethics perspectives of the global majority, but even in these efforts, I noticed another glaring omission. Okay, thank you. What are the sub-Saharan African data ethics perspectives? Sorry, this is supposed to be a nice little lead up, but essentially, it's a glaring omission that the fact community is not highlighting the clear epistemic traditions of sub-Saharan African communities. So we developed this research question: what are the African values and ethical theories that can inform responsible data science in Africa? In order to answer this research question, we use techniques from document thematic analysis and also literature reviews to qualitatively analyze an interdisciplinary corpus. And with this corpus, we derived a 6-principle framework. These principles include challenge power asymmetries, assert data self-determination, invest in local data institutions and infrastructures, utilize communalist practices, center communities on the margins, and also uphold common good. All of these principles are clear themes within the discourses of African data ethicists and their communities in defining what responsible data science can and should look like for them. So to further flesh out this framework, I'll quickly go over our 3 main contributions. First, we have highlighted triangulated minor principles, and these are what hold our thematic analyses. Secondly, we did comparative analysis with other data ethics frameworks to see how African data ethics fits in the global data ethics conversation. And then finally, we have highlighted grounded case studies to show what our principles look like in the real world. So first, I'll start off with our minor principles and talk about one of my favorite ones, and the first one, challenge colonial power. So we took a paper such as Sabelo M. Lobby is one of the first people to articulate African AI ethics, where he calls out the epistemic injustice in current AI ethics paradigms. And we put that paper in conversation with Clarice Njungu's Blood, Minerals, and the Curse, which is an economics and Black studies dissertation that highlights the neo-colonial capture of DRC mining practices. And of course, these mining practices are the foundation of the supply chain for computing infrastructure. So once these papers are put in conversation with each other, it derives a triangulated analysis that shows how decolonial critique is crucial for African data ethicists in understanding the problematic power relations that affect how they operate in the global data science ecosystem. So minor principles such as these highlight how when African scholarship across disciplines are put in conversation with each other, they derive really strong moral analyses about the ethical dilemmas that face African data scientists and how African epistemic traditions can help derive solutions. So secondly, I will talk about our comparative analysis. So we took these minor principles and used them as codes to thematically analyze 7 data ethics frameworks, such as Fact's own Data Feminism for AI, to understand thematic similarities. And we found there were some commonalities, but there are also clear, firstly, explicit omissions that African data ethics speaks to. For example, none of the other frameworks highlight and center rural and remote communities in their work. African data ethicists make a clear point to do this, considering how much technology is made for rural communities. Rather, they highlight that making technology with rural communities demands honoring their expertise, preserving their ways of life, and also making sure the technology clearly speaks to their priority needs for access. And then I'll talk about a conceptual gap. So all of the frameworks talk about social good, common good. That's the aim for good technology. However, African data ethics provides a clear condemnation of the current status of social good without material repair. And this is informed by the ongoing efforts of African data science communities to call for reconciliation and repair for the data harms they have experienced. And so this comparative analysis shows that African data ethics provides really unique insights to progress global data ethics conversations forward. And finally, I'll talk about a grounded case study. And one of the premier African data ethics communities is Masakane. They are a grassroots research collective that focuses on NLP, and I'll quickly talk about how they uphold our major principle, assert data self-determination. So first, they clearly call for the prohibition of parachute research. This is when non-African researchers come, collaborate, work with African researchers, then take the knowledge and the material benefits of that work outside of Africa. Masakane clearly states that they want their research to be led by Africans, and the primary benefit of their research will be for Africans. Secondly, the whole mission of Masakane is treasuring indigenous knowledge. They seize the narratives of underrepresentation of African indigenous languages and decide to do it for themselves, but do it in a way that honors the indigenous knowledge found in African indigenous languages, and also uses technology as a way to preserve it for the future. And finally, I really like what they do with protecting data agency. And this is a way of seeing how all data collaborators should have appropriate ownership and attribution for their labor that they contribute. So for example, they highlight the authorship and provide authorship to all of the data translators that they highlight in their work. And this shows that there's no hierarchy of who owns data knowledge and data work, that it should be for everyone who provides substantial contributions. And I'll quickly talk about also how our case studies show that our framework isn't just random ideals, but rather they're distillations of the current normative approaches African data science communities are taking. And so I quickly went over our minor principles, comparative analyses, and also our case studies. And now I'll quickly leave you with a contribution that I learned throughout this process. So a lot of times we talk about operationalizing data ethics, but from learning from the scholars in my corpus, I've found that grounding your technical work in clear socio-political analysis and also applying your own epistemic traditions to what responsible data science can look like is an operation in of itself. It provides a clear moral direction for your work, and especially for marginalized communities, such as African data science communities. Defining and articulating your clear ethical perspective is also a refusal to have your responsible data science future determined by external actors. So I hope all of you will check out my preprint and also be inspired as much as me about how Africa determines its responsible data science future. And also, if you're an African data scientist, I would love to hear your thoughts and to talk. Thank you.